Thank you all for joining me today at the Ambassador Awards Forum and letting me ask you all some questions so that the BioOne community can get to know you a bit better. For anyone who doesn't know, I'll go into a little background about the award. The Ambassador Award recognizes early career researchers who demonstrate creative approaches to scientific communication. The Ambassador Awards is in its seventh year. And we invite all of our publishers to nominate researchers who published an article in their journal in the previous year. And then the nominees are asked to submit a response to the prompt, "How does your research change the world?" And we have a panel of judges. And I know for a fact that some really great stuff was submitted this year, and it was a really tough choice. But you were all selected as the winners, and I'm not surprised at all. And congratulations again to all of you. All of your pieces really blew me away. The written pieces, the video pieces were beautiful. What they all did really was they were moving, impactful, and most importantly, simple to understand, which is the purpose, right? You all expressed complicated scientific concepts into beautiful and creative, artful expressions. So thank you all again. We're so proud of your excellent work and so proud to be able to share it with the world. And I'm so pleased to be able to chat with you today for a little bit. Before I go into the questions, I thought we should go around and everyone can introduce themselves. So I will call on you in no particular order, starting with Talis.
Hello, my name is Thales Pereira. I am from Brazil and I moved to Alaska 3 years ago to do my research that I published. I am a biologist, entomologist. I'm really curious about everything around me and I can easily be distracted by any bug that's walking or flying around me.
I love that. Thank you so much. Ellis.
Hi, I'm Ellis. I'm an anatomic pathology resident and PhD student at the Washington State University, and I'm also a veterinarian too. I study tick-borne diseases as part of my PhD research, and as part of my pathology duties, I really get to study and diagnose diseases in a whole huge variety of species, really everything from horses and cattle to things as bizarre as sea urchins and things like that.
So cool. Thank you. Sarah.
I'm Sarah Wright. I'm also a veterinarian. I'm currently an associate editor for the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association and the American Journal of Veterinary Research. I'm based in Chicago, and my project for this award was about sea lions, and it was a collaborative project with Brookfield Zoo Chicago and the Punta San Juan program in Peru.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. And Michael.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Stewart. I am probably a little bit old for a lot of early career people, but this is the start of my second career. I retired from the Army in 2019. I've been very interested in birds for a couple decades at least, and I started studying greyhawks as part of a master's degree in the lower Rio Grande Valley of Texas. So that's what I'm still studying right now, but I'm up at Texas A&M University in Kingsville working on a PhD.
Very cool, Mike. Thank you. And thank you for reminding us that early career just means just that, early career. Karina.
Yeah, I'm Karina, and I'm a postdoc at the university in Turku, and I work with white-tailed eagles. Ecology and life history questions are primarily my target, but also I do some conservation-relevant work, especially in regards to renewable energy, with wind energy. I have a thing for big birds. I have worked with golden eagles as well, and with black sparrowhawks in South Africa. Yeah, it's been my research focus for ever since my career started, and I hope to continue working with them and ask all kinds of fascinating research questions.
I would like to start at the beginning with who or what inspired you? And anyone can answer these questions. Who or what inspired you to pursue your field of study? Was there a moment of clarity or a news event or a particular species that got you excited?
I can start us off. So this is Sarah Wright, and I first got inspired actually in general about aquatic animals, which is where most of my research is involved in, by doing the John G. Shedd Aquarium Trainer for a Day program. When I was in high school, I got to be a marine mammal trainer for a whole day. And I instantly knew, it sounds very cheesy, but I literally knew, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to work to help these animals because they're so cool. And my like gateway species, as far as research is concerned, was clownfish, specifically tomato and saddleback clownfish. I designed, carried out, and subsequently published my first research project in the Journal of Aquatic Animal Health as a veterinary student with doctors Greg Lubort, Roy Renong, and Nicole Stacy. And I was inspired to pursue my field of study based on my connection to the living world.
I think the thing that got me really interested in birds was a pair of blue jays that nested right outside a kitchen window when I was living in upstate New York. And been interested in birds ever since. So when I retired from the Army and started on graduate research, I really wanted to work with a bird species, particularly one that was one of the South Texas specialties down in the lower Rio Grande Valley. And opportunity came up for Greyhawks. So I jumped all over that. They're a really, really awesome raptor. They're gorgeous. They're very interesting. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know them up close and personal.
Yeah, I also have a story.
Please.
So it's also a little bit cheesy, but I was just a little girl and I was an animal nerd. And then in high school, I was in London actually, and I got my hands on a bird book, and that's when I realized how many different birds there were in Europe alone. And ever since then, I have been the weird one in school who was into birds. So and even then, I wanted to become an ornithologist, and I am one now. So it's career done.
I've always really been, fascinated by, wildlife, biology, and things like that. And I think I knew it from a really young age. I wanted to do something with that. So, I went to vet school and became a veterinarian. So I guess my gateway species would have been all of them, as cheesy as that sounds. I think the first wildlife species I got to work with actually was mustangs. I was in a research project looking at, herpes virus vaccinations for them. And I got to, help with their care, help sedate them, draw blood, things like that. And that was a really cool experience.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a dentist. And then it was in I think the end of my middle school, I was in a class of classification of like range, orders, and of animals. And I left the class thinking that I could name any species around me as a specific name. And I was amazed by the option of name a species. And in that time, for me, it was easy, right? And then in the undergrad, I worked with different things, but I knew that put things in box and classify them and name it is something that I really love to do now.
That's so cool. Thank you all for that. So, if you could study anything other than your research focus, what would it be? Or do you have a favorite subject other than what you currently study?
Yeah, so I think if I wasn't doing this, I'd really want to be a paleontologist. I really like dinosaurs. And I always kind of hope, I know Jurassic Park says it's a bad idea, but I really hope we bring them back someday as possible, as it seems, so that I can specialize in dinosaur pathology. That would make me really happy. But I don't think it'll ever happen, but I can hope.
Me too.
Yeah, if I wasn't doing aquatic animal health research, I would probably instead focus more on psychology and study people's connection to the natural world and what influences that connection and what inspires their actions to make a difference as far as being like stewards for the environment.
I think there was a 6 month program in my university where we did ethnobotanics. Like we help native people to how to use the native plants, like in the way that they could have benefits from it, and even like selling seeds and selling seedlings from the native plants, because we have big programs where we need to replant and plant native plants. So it was a really good experience, and I think I would work on that too, like in this kind of program.
So Getting back to the impetus behind the Ambassador Award. So when we think about effective science communication, thinking about how scientific research can translate to public awareness, right? I would like to get your thoughts on the effectiveness of plain language summaries, video, graphical abstracts. These are, new ways that we're trying to kind of bridge that gap between the scientific researcher and the quote unquote layperson. How do you feel about them, and how do you feel about being asked to create those as a researcher?
I think
Be
those are
happy
all
to.
very useful. Uh, I had several jobs in the military. My last one in the Army was public affairs officer, dealing with media and just communication in general. And my observation is that a lot of scientists don't do a very good job communicating at all. And I don't think that I'm alone with that. There's a book that I recently read. It was Structure of Scientific Revolutions, and the author Kuhn makes an observation. People used to write books, and now it's a lot of just articles for other scientists that, very limited audience. An example he gave was Darwin on the Origin of Species. And I think that that's what a lot of people do now is article that their peers can read. Maybe some of them are pretty dense, and I think even tough for other people in the same field. And that's usually it. And one of the things that I used to focus on was when you were going to message something, you had an overall theme that you wanted to communicate with several messages, and it wasn't just one target audience. There were multiple audiences that you wanted to convey your message to. So with science, it could be other scientists, it could be general public, it could be policymakers. And for each of those groups, there's going to be a different type of messaging that's going to reach them most effectively. It's not going to be boring scientific journal article that's going to reach everyone. So I think that these other methods are extremely important for people to learn how to incorporate into their research. Otherwise, I could end up publishing stuff about greyhawks and how it's important to conserve them, and it's going to other researchers that are already share the same view that I do, and that it's not going to accomplish near as much.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Sarah, you were going to say.
I got really excited to ask this question because this is actually like now what I do for my full-time job. I'm like a full-time science communicator essentially. But I definitely think that we need to emphasize the importance to our researchers. And I have the unique perspective as a researcher and also now on the editorial side of things about the importance of these layperson summaries and graphic abstracts. So through the digital evolution, we've seen the rise in the need for science communication beyond the article, just like Mike was saying. So layperson summaries and graphic abstracts are a great way to communicate science in a way that may better resonate with the target audience.
I'll add in too that I feel like they're not just for lay people, honestly. Like, I am not an expert in every branch of science. And there are some complex things like immunology where a graphical abstract is super helpful. I mean, for me personally. So yeah, I always really appreciate that.
To add, I think it's very important that we are communicating our findings to a broader audience, to the layperson. But I feel also that we are tasked to do things without ever getting any proper training. And that's a very difficult thing. I think lay summaries are still something almost every researcher can do if asked, but graphical abstracts, I feel there's a big gap between the very good ones and the very bad ones, because either you know how to do it or you don't know how to do it. And I do not know why that is, if that's just no knowledge out there how to actually make good graphical abstracts, for example.
Since I've been doing outreach in different states in Brazil and different states here in the US, it's also interesting to highlight that even the layperson have lots of difference on that, right? Even the same country, people understand things differently, even the same city, even different countries. And so it's really interesting to thinking about that too, that even when we think like the layperson's not one, I think this is also what make us in a way that better communicators to like thinking about in the spectrum of that inside one point.
Right, absolutely. Beyond just the abstract, just in the way that we communicate in general as well. Um, so everyone's favorite topic right now, and for good reason, AI and generative AI. I want to talk about it a little. I'm interested in your unique perspectives that you all have. Obviously, as publishers, we're talking a lot right now. There are genuine concerns, of course, about research integrity and plagiarism and misinformation. I think also we're all thinking about how AI can be used for good and how it can speed up the publication process, how it can help people who are non-native English speakers write papers. I would like to know, from your perspective as early career researchers, do you view AI as an existential threat or a boon and a gift to the early career researcher?
I personally think that there is no way to fight against it. Like I think we should learn how to use it in a way that would help us instead to, just avoid or slash fight against it. I'm starting to learn more, like how to use it. So we need to be more aware, like the ways to recognize information based on AI, and instead to try to not use or feel that as a threat into our careers, in my opinion.
So we talked a lot about AI at the Society for Scholarly Publishing's New Directions seminar recently. And my biggest takeaway was that it's important to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to AI, including generative AI. We can collaborate with AI to ensure research integrity during the submission process on the publisher side of things. And then as a researcher too, I think it'll also be important to stay apprised of what the current norm or standard is in the field, especially your specific field, so that you can ensure that you're within the boundaries of what is acceptable and what is considered good research integrity. And on the publisher side of things, it'll be important to continually update policies to ensure they address the changing AI landscape, and then also communicate those policies too with authors so that there's no unnecessary frustrations.
Absolutely. So there's a balance, 100%.
So I think that AI is a tool, and I think just like any other tools, it can have some proper uses and then it could be used improperly. I personally don't worry too much about research integrity with AI. I think that people are still going to have to conduct research and have data that they're writing about. If they just create stuff, I think someone's going to catch that. People already do that and it already gets caught. I personally like to use it to help edit what I have written. Word doesn't catch everything. There's some stuff that could flow a little bit better. And so just like asking someone else to review what I've written, I can use AI for that purpose. Also to help make stuff a bit more concise. I start to ramble and get a bit wordy, as I'm sure y'all can already tell. So it helps with that. But probably the biggest thing that I've used it for so far, I have not much experience with coding and using R, and it has been a godsend for that. I can get some weird error in R that I have no idea what it is, throw it into ChatGPT, and it tells me right away what I've done wrong and what I need to do to fix it. So it's extremely helpful for coding.
Thank you, Mike. That was kind of what my imperfect question was getting at, was, kind of how are you using it as well? So that's really helpful to know. So I think it can be used for good, and I think it will be increasingly, there'll be more checks and balances going forward too.
I agree absolutely with what Mike said. It's really helpful in the coding process, but also improving the language. So I'm not native English, and it has really improved my writing. It can also be a good check of what I have written so far. Does the AI actually understand what I have written, or have I been bad in my formulating the words and everything, the sentences? And I also do not think that we are not yet there, that AI will ever replace the scientist in the scientific process. So I do not think that there is any fear that we will become obsolete in the near future.
And kind of in similar question, but where do you see the future? This is broad. Where do you see the future of scholarly communication? And also, what do you think is the biggest problem early career researchers or researchers in general face these days?
I think that scholarly communications, we're going to see a shift more towards open science. Just like it talks a lot with some of like the Society of Scholarly Publishing and Council of Science Editors folks. I just feel like we are seeing that shift, especially as potentially funding mandates change. I think just the biggest hurdle for early career researchers is having that confidence and having someone really invest in you to know that you can do this, you can publish, you can do really well and succeed, because you really need a strong mentor. So hopefully, like, we as researchers too can turn back around and help the next generation and continue that, foster that, like, a positive mentorship relationship to build our early career researchers up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the hardest thing is finding the right mentor. Like we had a great program at WSU where you could rotate through different labs and kind of see who you clicked with, you know. And I think that that was really helpful because the mentorship can really make or break your early career, you know. If you don't have great mentorship, you might start to, you know, lose your joy in actually discovering things in science. But a great mentor can really just, you know, fuel that fire and help you become the best researcher you can be.
Beautifully put.
There's a couple things that I find challenging. One of them, I think, is identifying where to publish. And it's not that there are not any options, it's that there are so many options, and it seems to be increasing more and more, that there's just a ton of publications and journals out there. I think that in one respect, this makes it tough to keep on top of your field because there's just so much out there you can't find and read all of it. But then also where to publish. There's some journals that are very clear cut that I know it's a reputable journal, but trying to find out the ones in between, is it reputable? Is it a predatory journal? Where should I send it? And then another thing that I find a bit of a challenge is not everything that I have done so far has been associated with school. So if it's a publication with school, they will take care of page charges for me. Otherwise, it's a project that I'm doing on my own. And so if I want to get it published somewhere, and then especially journals that aren't already open source, if I want it to be open source, I have page charges, then I have an additional fee to make it open source. And that could easily be like $3,000 I'm looking at out of my pocket if I want to publish in that journal. So that's another concern. I think if someone's not working in an institution that takes care of that, it's can be a pretty substantial cost.
So this is kind of a similar question. How would you encourage generations of future researchers? And what is one thing you would tell yourself 10 years ago?
I would encourage generations of future researchers to publish their work in peer-reviewed journals that have a constructive, fast, and fair peer review process, and that will work with the author to maximize the reach of the research article. I would encourage future researchers to also have a solid foundation in biostatistics, because I feel that's something that's not often very well taught, especially in graduate programs sometimes. And to change the mindset to not think of the publication as the endpoint for the project, but as a springboard for further dissemination of their findings and for future studies. We need sound science now more than ever before to make good evidence-based decisions. And I would tell myself 10 years ago to make the most of every professional opportunity, because you never know where your career will take you.
Yep.
When you asked this question, I thought about young people, you know, like young students, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and I would tell them to keep curious about everything that they could, because this is what make me going on and on, like just be curious about that. And what I would tell to myself 10 years ago, I would say to try to study tools that could make me also in a good career outside academia, like industry or something like this. I would say for myself that 10 years ago, like I love to do academia and it's what I do now, but I would say that like try to study tool that's allow you to be good outside academia to industry or business or etc.
What I would like to tell myself about 10 years ago is that I not to be afraid of making mistakes, So in our education system, we are often under pressure to know stuff. But when you then transition into becoming a researcher, it's actually finding out stuff that is unknown. So you're not knowing stuff, and be open to communicate even unfinished work with colleagues and other people to get more insights and to to work as a collaboration on not knowing things.
We all need that reminder. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my thoughts were similar on it. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and, definitely do try to like work with other people, ask for help if you need it, things like that. I've had a lot of help along the way, and I couldn't have done what I did, without other people's help and guidance.
So I think one thing that I would wish that I would have done 10 years ago is develop a habit of reading consistently. That's something that has definitely made it more challenging now, trying to establish that habit, and books, articles, both. And with a lot of the journal articles, it's not even reading the whole article. It depends on what it is. There's some that I'll try and read the entire thing. Some of them I'll just try and read the abstract, maybe the end of the introduction, the first part of the discussion, but trying to keep up on the field that I have entered and what's going on with it. And I think what Sarah said is extremely important. I don't need to be a statistician, but I definitely need to try and have a good foundation in statistics. There's plenty that I've already done that uses some of it, and then a lot of the papers, it can be really hard to understand a lot of them, and it still is after taking quite a few courses. And I think another thing that I would advise people is to just learn to think critically, think for yourself. Just don't take people's word for stuff all the time. I think it's important to have mentors, but some of the mentorship that I've received, I've noticed a difference with some of the people where some of them advice that I get or things that they'll tell me, it's based on not just their experience, but the research that they've done, things that they've found out, not just, oh, I've observed this and here's what I think, so I'm going to throw it out there like it's a fact. And so I think that's it. Thinking critically and, okay, this person just told me this, but what's it based on? Is it some kind of, is there any empirical evidence behind it? Or is it just, this is what sounds good, and so they're throwing it out there like it's fact.
These are amazing life lessons. Thank you. And a great reminder about continuing education and staying engaged. And that's good career advice for anyone. Thank you. So what does being a BioOne ambassador mean to you? You guys, this has been, an amazing, you winning this award is very prestigious, and I'm so impressed with all of you and talking to you all now. It's overwhelming. This is my favorite thing to do all year, is to get to talk to the ambassadors, and you're all incredible. What does being a BioOne ambassador mean to you, and how did you go about crafting your submission? Do you have any tips for the next group of potential BioOne ambassadors?
Yeah, so I think really what it means to me, I mean, we say, it's helping to promote science communication. I think perhaps the real heart of that is that it's really making something like wildlife research really engaging for, other scientists not in the field and lay people alike. I think, when I went about crafting my submission, I've always really liked watching videos of people drawing stuff. I just really enjoy, the process of watching them do it. And I like to draw a lot. I actually make stickers as a hobby, and I give them out to the students. So I kind of draw animal stickers and things like that. And so I kind of decided to combine two of my passions, art and, scientific research and storytelling to make my submission. And I think, if I was going to give advice to other people, potentially, try to combine, two of your passions or skills and perhaps try and make it that way.
Very cool. I loved your video, Ellen.
Being a BioOne ambassador just really gave me the confidence, and it was nice to know that people believed in me and my work. Particularly for my project, I sat and looked at blood films from many, many years for all of these sea lions and fur seals. So it was really cool to see that people like cared about my work and that it really can make an impact. So as a scientific communicator too, that just was super awesome. And I created my submission via video format, just like Alice too, by focusing on what would resonate with the general public. And my goal is to connect my research to the public to inspire them to make a difference. And I recommend the next cohort of potential BioOne ambassadors keep their target audience in mind when they're crafting their submission, and especially like removing things like jargon words or things that make sense maybe to you as a researcher, but wouldn't really resonate with the audience you're trying to reach, and just really keep that target in mind when you're crafting your submission.
That is great advice, and loved your video too.
Adding to what they said too, I love the recognition, right? Like to be this recognition that you guys gave to us for me is really special. And when I've wrote articles for local newspapers and where I lived in Alaska, and the experience of trying to talk with a broad audience in the way that I felt kind of a personal, like I felt that I wrote in a way that it was how I was feeling about that topic in that time. Like I tried to put my emotions, these are the words I was looking for. I tried to put my emotions in the writing in the way that people also feel personal, like that information was being from heart to heart. And that's the way that I sounds cheesy, but yeah, like this was the way that I craft. I try to be sincere about my words too, and I agree with Sarah, and also avoid jargons and try to write in a way that is clear and for everyone and accessible too for everyone.
That was a word I was going to use about all the written pieces. I found them all to be emotional, and it's very well said.
So I was extremely honored when the Journal of Raptor Research nominated me for this, and then to find out that I won, I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe it. The recognition has been great, and I think most importantly from my mom. Both my parents were proud, but my mom is a retired biology professor, and so it was another thing that she got to add to her folder of stuff that I've done so far. So that was great. And then some other people that I've already met in the field, they saw it, and I started getting emails from people congratulating me. So that was great. The monetary award that went with it was also nice. The research that I've been doing so far for the master's and also the PhD, I'm not going to school on grant funded research. So every little bit that I've been able to find has helped tremendously. And then advice other than what's been said, I think advice that I would give to others is it can be really easy to, I think, develop you've got a study species and a research question, and it can be very, very specific. And trying to frame that in a broader, much broader context of, how is this going to be important, not just for this species in this little area, and not even for this species throughout its entire range, but other species in similar habitat types, and how can what I'm learning impact wildlife conservation the most. In my view, conservation is what I'm interested in, but whatever someone's specific focus is, how can it have the most impact?
Thank you so much, Mike. It's wonderful to hear about the honorarium, and you're going to make me emotional talking about your mom. Karina?
I've been very humbled to be awarded, and it was also it's a study, or it's a study that's been very dear to me, because I have studied golden eagle genetics for my master's, and I have done another project on it during my PhD, but not as part of my PhD. And then as part of my postdoc, I've been publishing now this work. So it's been with me for my entire scientific career, and it made me reflect on where I started off as a researcher. And it generally was a very nice and positive experience for me to craft the text for the award. And what I would tell all other applicants in the future, be a little bit more creative than I was. I didn't make a video, I was just crafting a text. But be authentic and show your passion for what you've been doing.
I loved all of your pieces and thought they were all very creative. So thank you, Karina. We'll add this last question. What would you say to other career researchers considering a submission for the BioOne Ambassador Awards? If you anything you haven't said already.
Yeah, I'd say, definitely go for it. I think that just the act of crafting the submission, made me think a lot more about the clarity of my communication and just like, kind of the skills that I developed as I crafted my submission, I could take forward really and, apply to my scientific writing and, as I explain things, to other people about my research.
I agree. I would highly encourage other early career researchers to apply for the BioOne Ambassador Award. It's always nice to be recognized and to see the impact that your research is making on the world.
Adding to that too, it's a hard practice, like to talk about how your research is impacting the world. Like even for me, when I thought about describing a new species using citizen science in that paper, even that, it was hard for me to like go through that test to put together like this idea to impact the world. And it was nice by the end to read it through and say like, oh, I was capable to show them like how my research impacted the world. It was really nice.
I would just echo the same thing. I think that the more writing I've done, the better I think I'm getting at it. Hopefully I am. So any kind of grant proposal, any award that I've submitted something for, written a couple magazine articles, journal articles, any of that stuff, I think I just get a little better and better each time. But it also, writing for different things makes me think about it in a different way. And again, who is the audience and how can I best connect with them? Because it is very different writing a journal article from a magazine article. It's going to go to a bunch of people that care about game species in Texas or, something like that. And I think also if someone's considering doing it, just do it. Worst thing that'll happen is they'll say no and you'll be in the same position you already are in, and you got to take chances.
I could talk to you guys all day. I truly feel so inspired by your responses. And, as I mentioned, this is my favorite thing to do all year long is to talk to the ambassadors. And you are all really just amazing minds and so inspiring to me. Thank you again for your time and again for your amazing pieces. They're all available. Anyone can go and look at them. They're on the Ambassador Awards homepage. Thank you guys again so much for your time today and congratulations again.